Derek Kimball. I'm the owner of the Ham Good Barbecue, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how I basically not just prepare each individual category like chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket, but I'm going to share with you the process of preparing for a contest, which there is a lot of practice and preparation and things you got to get down in order to compete and really compete with the people who are winning out there. So in this video, I'm going to trim chicken and explain my process, what I go through and what I'm looking for. And also, and some of you maybe have seen my other video where I did take a certification for judging. So I'm not only going to share with you the things I've learned in the past 4 years barbecuing and things I've learned through YouTube and classes and things like that, but taking the judging class and then judging a handful of contests really changed my thought process of kind of things that I need to do and what to look for, and also what the judges look for as well. And I will say this: pay as much attention to every single detail. For appearance, you want symmetry, you want each piece looking almost identical. But as we go through this, I'll share some of the recipes I use. Obviously, I'm going to be putting my products to the test, and my rubs, my sauces. I do my own brines, my injections. I will share those recipes with you. So we'll go ahead and dive in, and I do have a notebook over here. I always talk about taking really detailed notes through your cooking process. Now, you can, I have done the jacquard. I have done the, cooking them in the butter bath, wrapping them, and steaming these to where you're trying to render this fat out from under the skin. Because if you don't, it's very slick. So when the judge takes a bite and they bite through this, if it's bite through tenderness, then that's part of your score. What you don't want is for this skin, the fat under it, to not render, and then it pull off. Now I will share this: there literally is no rule saying that the skin needs to be bite through. But the rule is, how it was taught to me, is if it's in the box, it's to be judged. So the way they taught, at least me, the class I was in, is when you actually bite and the skin pulls off, you judge the meat and then you judge the skin. And if the skin, which is most likely if it comes off, is rubbery, that's where we all get dinged. That's where we lose points. So what has worked for me is, I normally don't like to take the skin off, but the past few cut experiments I've done with doing chicken, because I think chicken and ribs are my weakest right now. I feel better with pork and brisket. I'm gonna scrape the skin, because lately I get better results doing it the other way, where jacquard it, cook it in the butter bath, set the rub, and then you foil the pan and you try to steam this. I tend to have about, if I cook 8 pieces, I'll have about 3 to 4 that are perfect, but then I have another 3 to 4, which if I was at a competition, 3 of those would have to go in a box. It doesn't seem to quite render the way I want. So I'm going to go back to this process of actually removing the skin. And for those of you that haven't done a contest or that are still fairly new, on some of the forums I usually see on like Facebook and so on, the most common question I probably see pop up is, when can you prep your meats? When can you actually start trimming and doing that process? And you can do it really any time. You can do it a week or even 2 weeks. before the contest. So you can actually take your time and trim a lot of chicken. And I'm only going to show about 2 or 3 pieces how I do it. So you can actually trim, you can trim all your meats. You just can't inject, you can't season, you can't brine, you can't do nothing, but you can trim all of your meats weeks out before a contest. And to me, I think that is extremely helpful because, you know, not a lot of people, everybody's gotten away from scraping the skin, which I don't blame because it takes a lot of work. But for me, I'm just more consistent seeing the cooking process. I've done drumsticks, but I tend to see the skin pull up off of the, you know, on the chicken, and that makes for a bad appearance. I'm learning that basting those during the cooking process tend to help render that skin down, but I tend to be more, well, I want to say consistent with chicken thighs. So basically what I'm going to do, so part of the score is appearance. So this is what I'm trying to focus on. I want each and every piece to look identical. After I trim all these, I will actually weigh these out. I will take note of them. Just for those that are wondering, this chicken is from Sam's Club. As I get better in the process, I will probably switch and probably get something from either Publix or you know, I'll find a better quality chicken because I like just, you know, the skin being as white as possible. But as I go through this, I will take note of each weight of the chicken. Hopefully I have 6 to 8 pieces that fall within like a 6 to 7 ounce range, more so in the 7 ounce. But we'll see what happens after I trim these. I'll share with you the weight, but I'm not going to go through like video of me weighing them. But I'm going to share all that because I want to, you know, record and share. Really, I don't want it to be a total video just about the cooking process, but really the preparation behind it, because it does take a lot of practice, and you do have to pay attention to a lot of detail. So this piece I will take off, and that wings out, so most likely I'm just going to square this up right there. And I want the skin to actually, I'd like for it to fold over as much as possible with this. That's awfully close. So that's very, very close. I may take, yeah, just a little bit off right there. I'm fine with leaving that knuckle on, but right here I'm actually going to pull back. And I'm going to take some of that knuckle off. And I'll share with you the you know, the brine recipes, the injections I use. I just like cooking all my. I like making all my own brines, injections, and everything. Yeah, as I go through this process, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. So before I brine these, I'll end up actually, I'll probably jacquard it just a little bit. Only thing that bothers, again, symmetry. So it depends on how they all turn out. But that part right there kind of bubbles out a little bit, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I mean, I've got time, I can always fix that. Got a whole bunch of other pieces. So we'll see how the others turn out. My goal is to get to where I have 8 that look really good, because I'd like to get to where all I do is cook 8. I don't want to cook 12 or even 16 of these. It's just the cooking process can be stressful enough during a contest. So if I can manage just to cook, 8, all you need is 6 in a box, that would be fun with me. So I'm just going to place my knife at an angle. I'm not going to go through the skin. Believe it or not, this is really tough. And I'm just going to make a little slit, but I'm also going forward. And I'm just trying to scrape as much as that off. I want, where I am going to focus is the fat on the skin. If I can get as much of this part off and this part off, I'm not too worried about that, because then the skin will adhere to the end of the chicken where the judge bites through. Plus that fat will also flavor and help keep that chicken moist. But we have butter in it, it's going to be brine, it's going to have an injection, so I'm not worried about it actually being dry. And you can see, that'll happen when you scrape chicken. You'll get a little hole, but I'm not going to worry about that, because most likely it'll be covered up. It may not even make, the box or even in the cooking pan, but it'll be covered up with rub and sauce. So I mean, I'm not too worried about that. Again, this is why I recommend starting your preparation weeks out. You can see why you'd want to do this well in advance. Do this 8, 10, 12 times. And see, that's pretty good. It's about see-through, so that's not bad at all. So you're going to have appearance. You're going to have 6 pieces in a box. I will also go over some things I learned taking a judging class with the boxes. Mainly, the judge is to judge the garnishment, for the legality of it. I like to use kale. It's the easiest thing to use to make a box. So, in other words, and I'll do this when I do a video over the boxing. I want to say there's like red lettuce, cabbage, things like that. You don't want to garnish with that, and you don't even have to use garnishment, but most teams do. So you kind of want to fall into that realm of being one of those teams that kind of, you want to pretty up the box. The judges eat with their eyes. You want everything just looking perfect. It's an easy score for a 9 if you can nail that. So I'm not going to go too crazy on that. I actually like that. I didn't actually have to cut some of that skin away like you'd have to do on most of these pieces. So let's see how this fits back on here. So that's not too bad. It's real meaty on the ends. I like that. Again, like I said, this part kind of sticks out a little bit. But again, I'm just looking for the perfect 6 pieces, even 8 that I want to cook. And you can see as that renders down, I'm not too worried about. I had a little hole in the skin. Nobody will see that once that's covered up with sauce and rub. So I'm going to set that in my pan. Again, then I'll go through and I'll weigh these. I'll do a couple more. That's why a lot of people actually like to pull just the skin back and not completely off, just because sometimes the way it fits on there. But I'm just going to go ahead and pull it off, cut it to size. So what I'm doing is, so I've got the skin off. I'll just set it right there. I don't want to cut myself. I'll set this right here. And you'll always have this end piece where there's a lot of fat. So I like to actually just take that completely off. I got a little bowl I throw my trash in. You'll sometimes have some of this loose fat. Again, on the other side, you'll have this real fatty piece here. And you can scrape some of that off. But I want to square that up some, so I'm just going to take that off. And if I end up being on the lower side, like I said, I like to aim for like 6 to 7 ounces. I mean, I'm okay if it's a little bit under that. I'm going to take that little fatty piece off. Then I flip it over. I'm not too worried about some of this loose fat I'll take off. I've done 2 contests. That was back in 2019, and then I started doing my barbecue sauces and rubs. Then I ended up doing a judging class, and then so I didn't compete that year. So this will really be my first year of really getting into it. Hopefully I can do a handful of them. Doing the judging, to me, really helped out, because you can kind of see how things work behind the scenes. You can ask other judges questions, so it helped out a lot. Okay. So now the trick is getting this piece of chicken skin to fit on that and wrap around. So I need to leave some extra. Okay, I like the size of that piece, so hopefully it comes out and weighs good. Some of this fatty meat that's on this bottom a lot of times will actually render down when you cook it in a butter bath, maybe with some broth. So I usually don't stress over that. Okay, again, slight angle. I'm just making a small little slit, and I'm just trying to work my knife like that as I go through. And it does take a lot of practice, a lot of chicken. I'm still getting this down. usually get like a fillet knife in the hunting section at like Walmart. So I can bend and flatten that out some. This one's a little bit easier, it seems like. If it's hard to come off, I just don't stress over it. Again, that's kind of why I like to sometimes use the jacquard. The jacquard will actually poke some holes into the skin and it'll allow that fat as it cooks during the process to render out through those tiny little holes that it makes. Okay. You can even come in and see if you can get any extra fat off this way too. But it doesn't have to all be completely gone. Some teams will trim their ribs and other meats months out and then focus on, like if it was me, and you can see how tedious this process is, and focus on some of this harder stuff like the chicken and whatnot the weekend prior or even 2 weeks out. So most likely I'll end up, when I do a contest, see, I like how that looks. That's actually not bad. The size of that. So again, after we do this, we'll weigh them. My only worry is that, I'll end up having to freeze these, and hopefully that doesn't change the dynamic of the texture and the skin. I'll do one more, and then the next video will be doing the cooking process, and I'll share like my injections. It's a real basic injection. I just use some broth, a bouillon cube, and I'll share with you the brine I use. It's just a real generic brine. I just let it brine for 4 to 6 hours. So I will need to actually square that skin up some. So that one's going to be a little bit tougher, but let's see what we can do here. So I just tried to do the same thing. Skin's off, it's out of my way. I'm going to take the end. I like to use this knife because I want to take this fatty little end off right here. Is there any loose knuckle pieces? That can be trimmed off after the cooking process. I'm not worried about that. We don't have a ton of fat right there, but I'm going to trim a little bit of that off. Again, I'm kind of squaring it up. I'm going to have to shape it to that skin. I don't want to cut that so small that the skin just folds the top here, because worst case during the cooking process, if there is some fat and it's not rendering good, it can ride up, and that may affect the bite of the judge. So So that kind of wings out a little bit. We'll take that piece off. And then let's square it up just a little bit. We'll take part of that knuckle off. And since that's flaring out right there, we're just going to square that up too. Again, symmetry. So when they present the box, and when I do a box video, I'll give a little bit more detail as why they're looking at symmetry. And it's only a few seconds when the box is presented. You're just looking at it, and you're just looking. Is there 6 pieces? What they taught me in the judging classes is there 6 pieces. You'll be surprised some teams get in a hurry and may forget a piece, especially like brisket or pork. I've seen that happen a couple of times. And is the garnishment legal? And is it appealing and appetizing? I tell you, the teams that are nailing the appearance are paying extreme attention to detail, because their chicken all looks extremely identical. It has a nice glossy look to it. I mean, it just looks pristine. I mean, it's just shiny. Okay. I actually thought I was going to be one of those people that just didn't scrape skin, but I'm going to actually video most of my practices, because I feel like if you're a new team and you're jumping into competition, or you haven't done a lot of them, I mean, the teams already out there winning have done this like 40, 50 times, so. It takes a lot of practice getting the cooking process down, your times, your recipes. I'll just go ahead and note, I would say if you have a rub or a sauce that is even slightly spicy, I mean, I'd have a lot of friends actually try that out. For me, I'm going to avoid. I've got one rub. It's a sweet heat mesquite, and it's really actually not that hot. It has a little gentle kick to it. But me personally, if I had a sauce or a rub that I was going to use in a contest, I would do a practice cook, and I'd take it to work or have a bunch of friends over, and I'd have them try it. If you have a lot of people that says it's too spicy, you're probably going to have some judges that say the same thing, and you don't want anything overly spicy, because as a judge, what happens is if it's too spicy, and I don't mind spice, but I've had a few entries actually, kind of light you up, and what you have to do is you kind of have to wait for that heat come off your taste buds so you can sample the next entry, because it'll affect the taste score if you keep going. But if the heat's really intense, that's what, like, a lot of teams, if you watch a lot of other videos, they'll say you don't want anything defensive. And it's usually heat that gets everybody. And so to you or the people on your team, it may not actually seem that hot, but you have 6 judges, and it could be mild for 5 of them, and you may have one that, for whatever reason, just picked up on something that was in that rub, especially if they're sensitive to cayenne or something like that. And that will affect your taste score. So I tend to lean more to kind of like a neutral balance. It's not, it's sweet, but not too, too much like candy. And I'll pretty much avoid anything that's overly spicy. I like the way that one looks. So again, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 8 more pieces. So it looks like I'll end up with like 11. And I may just do 2 pans when I do this. See, that's what I was trying to avoid. That ain't too bad, but I want that skin folding over. Because during that cooking process, that skin can pull up on the sides and it can pull up right there. So again, after, at 11, I'll pick the best 8. I'll probably cook all of these, but I'll pick the best 8. And so I will finish the rest of these, and then the next video that will be up will be when we actually smoke these. I will share the brine recipe, how long I brined it. I'll go over my notes I take, because I'll end up weighing these. All the details, the charcoal, we'll go through that when we cook and prep for this. And then it's basically, we'll be training for this until I nail this down and have 6 perfect pieces, and I can keep producing that, because that's the key to winning these contests. You just got to be able to reproduce. Chicken seems to be my weakness, so I'm going to try to master that, and ribs, and then we'll go through all the meats. And like I said, I want to share with you the cooking process, kind of how I do things, but I also want to share with you the back end, just the practice and things you got to really do to basically try to be competitive. And we'll see what happens this year. Thanks for watching, and next video will be over the cooking.